Hey there, good morning and welcome to the JeepSolid Garage. My name is Dale. I'm glad you guys are here. So today we're going to be going over how to check the overall condition of your engine. I'm going to take you guys through the process of how to do a compression test, what that means and what it tells us. So let's get started. So I'm going to use this engine here as an example of what a compression test is, so we can take it apart and look at the innards. Now obviously I've disassembled this previously, but I have this as a good example to show you guys. We got the top of the piston here, our valves right here, our exhaust and intake, and this area right here is the combustion chamber where our explosion happens. So it's this area right here, along with this little recess in the head. This is the areas we're going to be checking when we do our compression test. Now this engine is out of a 4-liter Jeep Wrangler inline 6, and its compression, each cylinder should be around 120 to 150, kind of in that range. If you have low compression, you can lose horsepower, fuel economy, and it tells you that you have a problem, a leak somewhere, and that leak can either be around the piston rings, out of the head gasket here, or through the valves. Here's a good look at the piston rings. So if these aren't fitting tight, if they're worn out or broken, you're not going to get that good seal along the edge of the cylinder wall here. And then the same thing with your valves. If your valves have a lot of pitting or they're just worn out, you're not going to get a tight seal right here. And we want that seal to compress and not let any air out when we have our explosion or combustion of our cylinder. So I'm actually in the process of rebuilding this engine, but I just want to use it as an example to show you guys what we're looking for on the compression test. And did I already mention the other leak that you can have out the head gasket? So obviously your head sits on top of the engine here, and if this gasket is leaking, you can lose compression from there as well. So let's move on to doing the compression test. So what I'm going to do first here is I'm going to actually disable the fuel pump, because what we're going to do is we're going to hook a pressure gauge up to cylinder number 1 where the spark plug is, and we're going to have somebody in the cab turn the engine over, and we don't want fuel going into the system while we're doing this. With that pressure gauge on there, we're going to be able to measure how much compression we have. So the fuel pump, to disable that, we are going to remove the fuel pump relay, which is right there. So that is this relay right here. And by taking this out, our fuel pump won't turn on. And I should also mention that we're doing this with the engine warm, so I had already warmed the engine up, because we want the engine under ideal operating conditions, and your engine's really designed to run at a certain temperature. That's the whole point of the thermostat, right? Next, I'm going to remove the spark plug wire off the coil, because I also don't want spark going to the engine. We're just going to be turning the engine over. We don't want it to actually try to start. Now I actually have my spark plugs labeled. There's number 1. That guy down in there has a 2 on it. There's a 3 on that guy. We don't want to get the spark plug wires out of order, so I've got them all labeled nicely. And this video is sponsored by Engine Tech. I'm going to be using their parts on this engine rebuild. They have everything I need for it. Pistons and rings, bearings, complete gasket sets, camshafts, oil pumps, whatever you need. Be sure to check out Engine Tech's website, linked in the description below. And we have a special offer for them for wholesale dealers. If you open a new wholesale account, use the code JeepSolid/wholesale and you'll get $100 off your first order. If you're already an existing wholesale member, you can use that same code to get $100 off your next order. Be sure to check that out, linked below. All right, now let's move along to removing the spark plugs, the spark plug wires. But before we do that, we want to clean out the little recesses, the little divots underneath the spark plugs, because we don't want any debris to fall down inside of the cylinders. And with that, I'll start with cylinder 1. Take the boot off. And we'll pull the spark plug. Now, like I said, we're doing this with the engine warm. And that's okay on this engine. It's okay to remove your spark plugs with your engine is when your engine is warm. If you have this is a cast iron head. If you have an aluminum head on your vehicle, you want to wait until the engine is cooled down before you put your spark plugs back in. Now I have a compression testing gauge here. I'll be sure to include a link in the description below. These aren't very expensive, or you can go ahead and order one off of Amazon. Now I'm just going to thread the little adapter into cylinder number 1 here. I don't need to tighten it very much, I'm just making sure it's snug. Now I can attach the pressure gauge. And there we go, we are all set. Now I just gotta go find myself a volunteer. Okay, I found my volunteer. So what I'm gonna have you do, I'm gonna have you get in the cab of the Jeep and you're gonna try to start it. You're gonna turn the key on. It's not gonna start though, it's just gonna turn over. And keep doing that until I tell you like stop. We're gonna turn it over like 6 times, maybe 8, and I'm watching the pressure out here. So it's just gonna okay.
Okay.
Okay. The other thing you have to do is I want you to keep your foot on the gas pedal, push the gas pedal all the way to the floor. No fuel is going to be going into the engine because I disabled that, but I want the valve, the little butterfly valve on the throttle wide open because I don't want any air impedance. I want air to be able to get into the engine without any trouble. So we'll make sure that it's in neutral. I'll help you put it in neutral. Okay, and just double checking. The fuel relay is removed, the coil is disconnected, so I don't have any spark or gas going to this. And we've got our pressure gauge hooked up, so go ahead, Sash. Okay. Perfect, so that's up at about, what is that, 20, 30, 40, 50. So it's about 130. So that's perfect, that's right in the range of normal for this engine. So I'm gonna let the pressure out. And we're gonna repeat that test twice on every cylinder. So, and exact same thing again, it's actually up about 135, so perfectly normal. So that's perfect. Cylinder 1, we got 130 and then 135, and we're gonna repeat that twice for every cylinder. And that is very bad, and I think maybe why this engine is running rough. I have no compression in cylinder number 2. I'm gonna just check my fittings here and make sure everything is tight. That is my issue. I'm gonna check it a 3rd time because that is impressive. I was not expecting to have such a bad cylinder. So Sash, let's do it again. I rechecked all my fittings here, made sure everything was tight, that my gauge here didn't have some kind of leak, but go ahead. That is bad. No bueno on cylinder number 2. Let me get the rest of the numbers here and I'll show you guys. So we got some crazy bad numbers here. Let me show you guys. So you know what I'm checking here? No. So you know how the piston goes up and compresses the gas and air to create the explosion, right? So it forces the piston down. So when the piston goes up and creates that pressure, you can have leaks. So you can have leaks around the piston rings or those valves that you took out. Remember when you took out the valves that let the fuel in and the exhaust out?
Yeah.
You can have leaks around those valves as well. Well, on my numbers here, cylinders 2 and 3, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Cylinders 2 and 3, I got super low readings. So that tells me I have a big issue with cylinders 2 and 3. So essentially this is running like a 4-cylinder. So yeah, I had been having trouble with this Jeep running rough, and I'd done a few things, checked the fuel pressure, did a tune-up on it, new spark plugs, wires, rotor cap, all of that, and then I got to the point of checking compression, and here's my numbers. So we got some crazy bad numbers. Cylinder 1, 4, 5, and 6, those are all okay. Remember, I'm supposed to be 120 to 150. So cylinder 2 and 3, I double and triple checked those. Those aren't working at all. Huge leak there. So it could be something with the valve train on top, like a couple of the valves are stuck open, broken rocker arms, that kind of thing. On this engine, eventually I'll be pulling the valve cover here so I can get a look at the valve train along there and see what condition that's in. But obviously this engine is going to need a lot of work. And yeah, I was really surprised to have such low pressures on cylinders 2 and 3. I was not expecting that. Do I have a broken head gasket leaking between those two cylinders? Maybe a broken spring leaving the valves open, causing a low pressure? I don't know. What I do know is I'll be getting some Engine Tech parts to fix this up in the near future after I pull the valve cover, see what's going on. So that'll be in a future episode. Thank you guys so much for watching. Check out my next episode right up here. Have a good day.